Instagram rolling out some new changes they say will keep teens safe on their platform. The same week the Kids Online Safety Act makes moves in Washington. Coincidence? Let's have you decide right now on MOMCAST. Welcome to MOMCAST. I'm Emma Jade. Finally, we are hearing from big tech about ways they plan to help protect our kids online. Instagram just announced changes to teen accounts on their platform. But MOMCAST did a little digging. Found out these changes came out one day before a House committee marked up the Kids Online Safety Act. You may have heard it called KOSA. It's a piece of legislation making its way through the House right now that will force big tech to protect our kids by law. According to those who back this bill, no, it's not a coincidence that Instagram makes this big announcement the same exact week, and that we should not be fooled by these new tools that they say will help protect teens on their platform. I do want to break down the changes Instagram says will take effect for teenagers over the next week or so. First up, all new and existing accounts set up by users under 18 will be made private by default, meaning starting next week, all teens will have to accept new followers to see their posts. Teens will no longer receive direct messages from people they don't follow. There's also a new sleep mode feature where teens will not receive notifications between 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. They can still be on the app during that time. They're just not going to get notifications overnight. There's also a feature for parents. This one is called supervision, where parents can see who their teen is chatting with. Not what's being said, though, just who they're talking to. Parents can also set daily limits and block their teens from certain time periods, like when they're at school or at night. Under supervision, parents can also see what topics their teens are searching on the app. But supervision can be turned off by the teen. Parent will get a notification. Actually, if your teen is 16 or 17, every single one of those new features that we just talked about can be turned off by them. It's why Nikki Reisberg, a fierce proponent of KOSA, who works tirelessly day in and day out to inform parents about the dangers their kids are facing online, says we can't rely on big tech to regulate themselves. Look how it's gone so far, and that we need our government to step in.
I have a feeling that every teenager in America is going to have to figure it out how to turn these settings off by the end of the week, and it's just too little too late. I appreciate the intention, but the questions are, why are they doing this right now? And then why is it so easy for these kids to turn it off?
Nikki runs a podcast and an account online. It's called Scrolling to Death, where she shares videos about what our teens are up against when they join social media. I want you to take a look at one of her videos that went viral, which, by the way, we had to censor because of some of the images.
I signed up for Snapchat as a newly 14-year-old girl with a birthday of March 10th, 2010. I did not connect any of my contacts to the account, though I was asked to do this twice during setup. I wanted to see specifically who Snapchat recommends that I connect with, having none of my contacts. I added the first 10 people they recommended who I did not know by name. Now, in my test, these people did not contact me. Not yet. It's been a day, but so far I've not been contacted by strangers. But this next part is what concerned me. I clicked on Spotlight, which is a reel of videos that Snapchat recommends. They say that Spotlight is the easiest way to discover the world of Snapchat in one place, and it shines a light on the most entertaining snaps, no matter who created them. So I started scrolling through the Spotlight area to see what videos Snapchat would recommend to me, a 14-year-old new user. I probably scrolled for about an hour the first day. And when I tell you that I felt physically ill, I am not joking. Here are some of the highlights of what I was served. This was the vibe of the majority of the content being served to a 14-year-old female user. There were other types of posts like beauty tips, but I'm telling you 98% of the videos were simply not appropriate for a 14-year-old. There were references to polygamy. There were people who were super drunk. So much bad language, so much sexualized content. Nearly every video had a subtle or not so subtle sexual nature to it. Videos with someone answering the question, the dumbest way you managed to get laid, or the kinkiest thing you've done in the bedroom. There was so much content about cheating boyfriends, recommendations for spicy books like romantic novels for a 14-year-old, videos about burner phones, literally introducing a kid on how to sneak access to certain platforms without their parents knowing, and so many ads for weight loss products or at-home workouts. And this video from inside of a strip club, plus obvious videos saying things like 18 plus and referencing that they can click through to see actual pornography. I cannot believe that this is what our young teenagers are watching. There was not one moment of scrolling through these videos where I felt empowered or hopeful or loved or educated on anything at all. This is not something our children should be seeing or using. There is no benefit to our kids seeing this content. If Snapchat was just a platform where kids can talk to their friends, then maybe I would get my head around it. But it is so much more than that.
Nikki is actually in Washington right now, fighting for the Kids Online Safety Act. I caught up with her right before she headed out.
Parents' voices are going to matter, and we need all parents to contact their representatives like today, right now, and tell them to co-sponsor KOSA, K-O-S-A, to vote it through, because we can't let this go on any longer. And kids, we can see the stats, we can see the depression rates, we can see the suicide rates. Big tech refuses to protect our kids. They don't have to because there's no law to require them to.
When this news from Instagram came out, my first thought went to the DeMay family. This is Jordan DeMay. And if you've watched MOMCAST, you know Jordan was a happy, kind, easygoing 17-year-old kid. Back in March of 2022, Jordan got a DM from a girl that he didn't know on Instagram. They started talking. They exchanged photos, nude photos. And then came the extortion. Give us money or we will send these photos everywhere. Jordan even paid. They demanded more money. And just a few hours after that first seemingly innocent message came through, Jordan shot himself in his bedroom. The convo over Instagram started just around 10 o'clock at night. Jordan took his life a few hours later, 3:45 a.m. So what does his dad think of these new changes to the Instagram platform?
They probably could have done things sooner, sure, we all can, but at least they're doing something.
Ahead on MOMCAST, John has some ideas for social media companies, but will they listen? Welcome back to MOMCAST. I'm Emma Jade. At just 17 years old, Jordan DeMay took his own life after falling victim to a sextortion scam over Instagram. Come to find out, the message he thought he received from a young girl turned out to be coming from a group of men in Nigeria. In Jordan's case, they caught the men responsible, which is pretty remarkable. They were doing this to more than 100 people across the world, teens, kids, adults. It's why Jordan's dad, John, has made telling their story his mission in life. All of this happened to Jordan over Instagram.
Correct.
You know, a little more than 2 years later, to see these kinds of changes, yes, it's a push in the right direction. However, when you look at Jordan's case specifically, I mean, he was 17, he was almost 18 years old. And
Right.
on the changes of this app, if you're over 16 or 17, you can take all of the teenage restrictions away. So
Right.
this really probably wouldn't have even protected Jordan.
Yeah, and that's part of our story too, and part of Jordan's story is that he was 8 weeks from being 18. You know, he
Yeah.
could have moved out that morning and I'd have been fine with it. He was well on his way to being self-sufficient and, you know, being a young person and becoming his own adult. But this really isn't just about Jordan. Jordan's legacy is more than that. This is about the 13 and the 12-year-olds that are dying, the 14, 15-year-olds. So they're the ones that are really at risk. And Jordan's story specifically, he kind of slipped in the cracks a little bit because he was so old. And this thing is happening to adults too. You know, part of, we have federal indictments. We have 2 that have pled guilty, were sentenced last week in our federal court right here in my hometown, and they're going to prison for 18 years each. So many parents that I've met just with sextortion specifically, several dozen, that have lost their kids in the 13, 14, 15-year-old range, you know, and that's the problem. It would not have changed Jordan's scenario, but it might have changed Dee's story or might have changed another kid's story. It's a tragedy and it really needs to stop and we have to do a little bit more, but I think this is at least a start. There's some acknowledgement there.
And something that I thought was really positive was not being able to receive messages from random people, which is what Jordan got. You know, he got a
Correct.
message from some what seemingly beautiful young girl, looked even to be his age, and responding to that, like you would think, like, sure, make a new friend. That's what social media is for. It's to make
Right.
friends and make connections.
Right.
So now that won't be allowed for these teen accounts, which again, we should reiterate, can be turned off. Are there other things that, like, in your perfect world on social media that you would just think this needs to happen?
Yeah, I think there's a couple really big things that need to happen.
Okay.
One is IP address monitoring. These tech companies have really easily basic AI technology at this point, programming that would allow their backend platforms to monitor IP addresses. So for instance, my cell phone, this has a specific IP address it's like a fingerprint. My laptop that I'm on has one as well. So what happens is in my story specifically, our extortionist sat in a living room in Nigeria. There was 4 of them in the living room. One is communicating with Jordan. One is over here building content. The other one is in the back researching Jordan, finding out who his friends are to use against him. And the other person's dealing with money. And so they have this little thing going on. But what happens is they're not just extorting Jordan. There was over 130 victims that they extorted over a period of time. So what happens is they get on they get on the internet, they go into Instagram, and they're reaching out to 15 or 20 different people on multiple different accounts. So if I'm the extortionist, I have maybe 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 Instagram accounts that are all fake or hacked accounts that I'm operating on this one device. Instagram or Meta knows that that one device is operating more than one account at the same time. So they have easy technology that they could implement into their system to say, hey, this laptop is operating 15 Instagram accounts right now at the same time. And they could easily just shut them all down, flag them, put them in a file, and then a human being at some point would pick it up and review it and look at it, and they could easily see who they're communicating with, and it would be instant that they could tell that it was a sextortion or drug transactions or different things.
If you could somehow speak to every kid on social media, what would you say to them? What would your message be?
I want the kids to know, the students and the young people to know, the young adults, that first of all, if this happens to you, it's not your fault. These people are professional. They're after you, and you do not have to have the capacity to figure this out or understand what's going on. So, first and foremost, it's not your fault. Second, if you do get involved in this, please tell somebody. You're not going to get shamed. It's happening to so many people, and nobody's talking about. Trust me, there's probably one in your friend group that is happening to that you don't know about. So it's literally happening all over the place. It's an epidemic right now.
You've gone through such a traumatic experience through this social media mess. But you said to me that, like, this is your life mission now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I take those calls all the time, honestly. And I'm compelled to. I can't say no, but and Jordan wouldn't want me to say no. And all the time that I'm never going to have with my son, I'm never going to get to, he'd have been 20 years old going to college. I'd have been setting him up in one of our apartments and buying him groceries and visiting him and going to do dinner. And so I don't ever get that time, that was taken from me. So when I feel overwhelmed sometimes, like right now, I've been doing a lot of traveling and I have several events. We're going international later in the month, and it's exhausting. But at the end of the day, I always look at this time as this is my time with Jordan. This is the time that when he called up, and said, hey, I need some help to go do this, or hey, will you come buy me groceries, or this is the stuff where I drop what I'm doing to be with him. And that's kind of how I view it. So and we're just, so many great people are being victim of this, and it feels so good to be able to at least get them in the right direction and have a sounding board for them, because when this happened to us, we didn't have anybody to turn to, and we were trying to figure it all out. What is this thing? And so if I can be that sounding board and just be like the person, like, okay, relax, it's okay. It really is okay. The parents need to hear that, and the kids need to hear it. Here's what you need to do. It's going to be all right.
So what can we do as parents right now to protect our kids? I've got something for you.
We maybe only have about 50 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives. Out of 400 something representatives, that's not enough.
Yes, you can do something today to help kids stay safe on social media. It only takes a minute of your time. That's ahead on MOMCAST. Welcome back to MOMCAST. The Kids Online Safety Act making its way through the House right now. It's a bill intended to regulate social media companies and protect our kids by law. Here's more from my interview with Nikki, who is in Washington fighting for this bill to move forward, and how you can be part of it.
So basically what we're trying to do is require these companies to make safe decisions for our kids. They're not going to do it on their own. Instagram is trying to tell us, look, we're doing it on our own. We don't need a law. But what they've employed is like just a light version that kids can turn off anyways. And we need to actually require them to implement restrictions that are going to be broad-reaching and actually protect kids. And the Kids Online Safety Act will get that job done. And it's actually just the first step in really a long line of regulation that needs to happen and fix what has been broken the last couple of decades.
Do you think that this new shiny change on Tuesday, the day before you guys are all set to meet, is this coincidental?
No, it's not a coincidence. Obviously, they're trying to. So what did the head of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, his quote is, "We decided to focus on what parents think because they know what's better and what's appropriate for their children than any tech company, any private company, any senator or policymaker or staffer or regulator." So Meta is actually saying, you don't need regulation. Don't trust our regulators. Don't trust our legislators. You parents just use these tools that we're providing to protect kids. But how well has that worked in the past decade or so? Like We've let big tech, they move fast, they break things, and those things are our children. And we need to stop trusting their word and then look at their actions, which have been very clear that they avoid protecting kids at every turn in favor of their profit.
This is a really tough fight. And as a parent, it feels like we're never going to win. These companies have the most money. They're so much smarter than us. I mean, the things that they create, sure, you're going to give me parental controls, but like my kids are smarter than me on tech, you know? So it sometimes feels like, are we ever going to win this fight?
Yes, we are. Because parents' voices are the only thing that's going to change the tide here. We elect our representatives to make decisions on what's best for us. And so if you're not going to make decisions on what's best for us, we're going to elect someone else into your place. And so I spoke with Representative Kat Kamek from Florida, and she said, I think this happened to me once. She goes, I had the CEO of TikTok waiting to meet with me, and then I had a parent from my district. I'm going to take that parent meeting every time because that's who I'm representing. And so I know they're getting, representatives and senators are getting funded in a lot of times, their campaigns by big tech, and they're getting pressured by these Harvard-educated attorneys that these companies hire to convince them to vote against these bills. But parents' voices are going to matter, and we need all parents to contact their representatives, like today, right now, and tell them to co-sponsor KOSA to vote it through, because we can't let this go on any longer. And kids, we can see the stats, we can see the depression rates, we can see the suicide rates, and it's because big tech refuses to protect our kids. They don't have to because there's no law to require them to.
When you talk to those who are involved with big tech, this was your job earlier. It was a social media manager.
Yeah.
What do you hear from them? Is it just passing the buck? Is it just like, oh, let parents deal with it? Or what do you hear?
I think that they think they're helping. I think a lot of people that come into big tech, especially in the last few years, they think that they're going to make a difference. They see the problems, it's obvious, and they think they're going to be able to make changes, and they hit their head against the wall because they make suggestions, and you see every time and time again that these companies don't implement the changes that are very simple that can protect children. And we see that in whistleblower testimony, specifically Facebook whistleblower David Erb. If you haven't heard that story, please listen to it on my podcast. But he basically was able to identify that there was tens of millions of children actively getting groomed on Facebook Messenger and Instagram Messenger as they were speaking. And he made very simple suggestions that could be implemented in just a couple days. And the executives not only didn't make those recommendations, but they added end-to-end encryption so that no one knew actually now what's going on in the conversations, and they can't be held liable for it.
God.
I swear.
Tell me why. Like, is there a reason? Like, why don't they want to make these changes? It seems so. Some of them have kids. For goodness sakes, Mark Zuckerberg has kids. He has admittedly said that he doesn't let his kids on any tablets or apps or anything. But why don't they make changes when so many people want it?
It's profit. It would cut into their profits, and they would have to actually acknowledge how many kids are getting harmed. But I do ask this of everyone I can. Like, these are human beings. How can they act like this? How can they make a decision that they know is going to harm children? And David Erb said, I think that people I worked with at the higher levels of Facebook, for example, are inhuman beings. He said, I don't think they're real human beings. But right now, we maybe only have about 50 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives. Out of 400-something representatives, that's not enough. So we need more representatives in the House to co-sponsor COSA. Not say, I'll vote for it if it goes through. They need to officially co-sponsor the bill, which indicates that they will vote yes, and then the chances are greater that it will be put for a vote. So parents can go to house.gov, put in your zip code, and find out who your representative is if you don't already know, and then just message them on their website or call them. It usually goes to voicemail. You can just leave a voicemail and say you're a parent in their district and you want them to co-sponsor COSA right now because kids are getting harmed. Like, put urgency to it. And the more parents that call, we're really increasing the chance that this bill could get passed before the election, and then things get all ruffled up, and it takes another year for this bill to get back to this point where it is now. Parents today need to pick up their cell phones and contact the representatives right this second. Literally, it'll take you 1 to 2 minutes. And then hopefully before the election is when we can see this passed into law. That's the goal. And so we just have, a couple more months to be pushing on this. But right now is a really sensitive time with the bill being marked up in the House. And so we need parents to be contacting their reps.
Honestly, just takes a couple of minutes to call, be part of this fight. So many times as parents, we don't know what to do when it comes to big tech. But today, we can pick up our phone, we can make a call, we can send an email, because it does matter. Your opinion, it can help. It's honestly how this bill has gotten this far already. It passed in the Senate, it's making its way through the House, and it's all thanks to you. So let's do it. I'll see you next Thursday, right here at 2:30. I'm Emma Jade. Thanks for watching MOMCAST.